something big just happened in Cleveland. Massive, actually. And if you think it's just about a quarterback change, think again. This is about power, pressure, and a move so bold, so sudden, it's left the entire NFL stunned. The Cleveland Browns didn't just make a football decision. They made a franchise-altering pivot from the very top, and the fingerprints of ownership are all over it. Shadur Sanders, a rookie with media buzz and a last name built for headlines, is now the starting quarterback. And the guy he's replacing? Dylan Gabriel healthy, cleared to return, and suddenly benched without warning. So, what really happened behind closed doors in Cleveland? Was this Stefanski's call? Or did Jimmy Haslam, the Browns' notoriously hands-on owner, just override his entire coaching staff in a desperate attempt to revive a dying fanbase? Because if you've been paying attention, this isn't just about who plays under center. It's about who's really running the show and what happens when business starts calling the plays instead of football. Let's break it all down because the real story here, it's way bigger than a depth chart. No one expected the Browns to make a move like this, not after a win, and definitely not with their original starting quarterback medically cleared to return. But Kevin Stefanski stepped up to the podium, looked into a sea of cameras, and dropped a headline that hit the NFL like a bomb. Shadur Sanders will remain the starter. Dylan Gabriel, healthy or not, is now on the bench. At first glance, this looked like your typical quarterback controversy, something every NFL team goes through. A young backup shines unexpectedly, creates a buzz, and suddenly there's a debate. But this wasn't a debate. There was no controversy. There was no competition. Stefanski didn't leave the door open for discussions. He didn't hedge his words or refer to week-to-week evaluations. He didn't say, "We'll assess things as we move forward." None of that. He said, "Sanders is starting, period." And that was the first red flag. In the NFL, there's an unwritten rule that players don't lose their jobs to injury, especially not veterans who cleared concussion protocol and were expected to return immediately. Dylan Gabriel hadn't been inconsistent. He hadn't unraveled before getting hurt. His job was, by all normal logic, secure. So what changed? That exact question was written all over the faces of the media as Stefanski gave his update. Everyone could feel it, the shift, the silence, the certainty. It didn't feel earned. It felt orchestrated. The move itself, benching Gabriel in favor of a rookie quarterback with one career start, might have raised eyebrows. But it was the way it was delivered that made this more than just a roster shakeup. There was no effort to soften the blow, no coach speak about what Dylan brings to the table, no acknowledgement of a QB competition that might unfold. It was framed as final, and more than anything, it felt unnatural. And that brings us to the kicker. The Browns had just won a game. A rare road victory, the kind of thing that usually reinforces the status quo. You'd expect celebrations. You'd expect Stefanski to talk about building on momentum. But instead, he's standing there announcing a permanent change at the most important position on the field. Sanders' performance was promising. No doubt he had poise, hit a couple of impressive throws, and managed the offense well for a debut. But let's be honest, it wasn't game-changing. It wasn't the kind of debut that makes you instantly crown a new franchise quarterback and reshuffle your entire depth chart. And yet, that's exactly what the Browns did. Now, in any other franchise, the natural assumption might be that the coaching staff saw something they really liked in Sanders. Maybe he showed them traits in practice that the outside world doesn't get to see. Maybe he wowed them with his grasp of the playbook or his command in the huddle. But this is Cleveland, a franchise notorious for erratic decisions and top-down pressure. Historically, when things in Cleveland move too quickly without explanations, it usually means one thing: the owner is involved. And the signs were already there. Media whispers, leaked reports, talk of slipping ticket sales, a restless fan base, empty seats in the stadium, all coinciding with the son of Deion Sanders stepping onto the NFL stage. Coincidence? Maybe. But you'd be naive to think this move was just about football. What Stefanski didn't say during that press conference matters more than what he did. He didn't explain why Gabriel wasn't getting a shot to reclaim his role. He didn't express any sense of difficult decision-making. His tone was uncharacteristically direct, almost like he was reading off a script handed to him 2 hours before. That's why this announcement hit differently. To be clear, this isn't about tearing down Shadur Sanders. The rookie has ability. He might very well be the future of this franchise. But future is the key word here. This isn't about readiness, this is about timing, and everything about the timing here is off. You don't bench a healthy starter after a win. You don't crown a rookie based on one performance. You don't force a quarterback controversy when there isn't one unless something else is motivating the change. Something bigger. Something upstairs. Because this wasn't just a quarterback switch, it was a shot across the bow. A signal from ownership that they're tired of losing fans, tired of empty seats, tired of seeing their investment rot, and they're willing to shake the foundation of the locker room if that's what it takes to create a spark. And it was just the beginning. As reporters scrambled to make sense of the quarterback change, the next clue didn't come from an official announcement. It came from Kevin Stefanski's face, his tone, and everything he didn't say. Watch that press conference closely, and you'll see it plain as day. He wasn't celebrating no breakout performance. He wasn't grinning about a young QB stepping up. He wasn't even speaking like a man who had just led the team to its first win of the season. He looked cornered, like someone reading lines written under pressure. Sure, he said all the right things, at least on the surface. He praised Sanders for managing the team, gave credit for making plays under pressure, and celebrated getting that elusive first W. But the way he said it, flat, robotic. No fire, no relief, no conviction. Just words. There was none of the coach speak you'd expect after a close quarterback race. No comments like, "We've got two great QBs and both bring different strengths to the table." This week is about preparation who looks sharp in practice, who gives us the best chance. We're taking it day by day. Nope. Instead, this decision was presented like a memo delivered without emotion, without room for discussion. No, we're still evaluating. No, Dylan's going to compete. Just this quiet, mechanical acknowledgement that the job now belongs to Shadur Sanders. Fans could feel it. The media definitely felt it. Even his own words, if you're paying attention, hinted at resignation rather than excitement. When a coach uses vague phrases like, "it just felt right," or "we're excited to see how he continues to grow" without diving into specifics, that's usually a red flag, especially when the move goes against every standard NFL protocol. Stefanski didn't make this sound like a celebration, he made it sound like compliance. And if that wasn't enough, you can hear it in how he talked about Dylan Gabriel too. In the same breath, he announced Gabriel's demotion. Stefanski pivoted to talking about how hard the backup position is for a player who's used to being the guy. How staying ready is critical. How mental fortitude matters when you're in the shadows. That's what really confirmed it wasn't his call. Because if this had been Stefanski's decision alone based on merit or game performance, he would have said why. He would have owned it. He would have outlined the criteria, talked about what Sanders did better, or how the offense changed under him. Something. Anything. Instead, we got coach speak about humility, preparation, perseverance. All code for, "I feel bad, but this wasn't my choice." And here's what makes it undeniable. Stefanski went out of his way to offer compassion to the player who just lost his job. That's not what coaches do when a player's been outplayed. That's what they do when someone gets screwed and they know it. If you're a player in that locker room, you're watching this entire dynamic unfold, and what you're seeing isn't a coach standing tall behind the podium. You're seeing a coach boxed in, held back, and forced to sell a decision that wasn't born on the practice field, but higher up the chain of command. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time a head coach in Cleveland was undermined by forces above them. The Browns have burned through coaches like fast food receipts, and a consistent reason why is ownership interference. Decisions that ignore the long game in favor of PR splashes, popularity boosts, or sudden emotional impulses. In Stefanski's demeanor, you saw a coach who knows exactly where this is heading and how powerless he is to stop it. That's what makes this deeper than a quarterback switch. It's not just about who plays on Sunday, it's about where authority starts and ends inside the Browns organization. Because if the head coach isn't making the call on the most important position on the team, then who is? We already know the answer, and we're just getting started. By now, the pieces are starting to fit together. The quarterback change didn't come from the practice field. It didn't come from game tape reviews or even from a brutal losing streak that forced a shakeup. No, this came from somewhere much higher, from the owner's suite. Jimmy Haslam, the Cleveland Browns owner, has a long and well-documented history of inserting himself into football decisions. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not speculation. It's been proven, reported, and criticized time and time again. What separates good franchises from stumbling ones is often as simple as this. The owner hires football people, trusts them to do their jobs, and backs off. Haslam? Not so much. And when you look at the timing of this decision, it just smells like a classic ownership move. Let's zoom out for a second. The Browns had just won a game. They picked up their first win of the season, and sure, it wasn't a masterpiece, but it was supposed to be a momentum builder. A moment where you celebrate, stabilize, and move forward. Instead, what happens? The next headline isn't Browns look to build on win. It's Shadur Sanders named starter, Gabriel benched. That's not an organic progression, that's a pivot, a sharp left turn. And the reason becomes very clear once you follow the money. Around this same time, murmurs within NFL circles started pointing toward an undeniable problem inside the Browns organization. Ticket sales were in freefall, morale was low, fans were tuning out. Resale prices for home games had hit rock bottom. In a city where loyalty usually runs deeper than wins and losses, even the diehards had started checking out. And that's when Shadur Sanders steps in. Not just a rookie quarterback, but the Shadur Sanders. The son of Dion Prime Sanders, a player who brings a level of brand recognition that transcends the game, college superstar, viral clips, charisma, national attention baked into his DNA. Suddenly, the Browns don't just have a new QB. They've got a headline, a story, a buzz. And that's no accident. You don't have to dig deep to figure this out. The Browns didn't just bench Gabriel because Sanders played well. They benched him because Sanders brings something money can't buy. Media, heat, eyes, clicks, excitement, relevance. This is how ownership thinks. Especially when the business side starts panicking. Jimmy Haslam is a businessman first. He made his fortune running truck stops, not football teams. And like any businessman, when the charts start dropping, when empty seats become normal and game day revenue disappears, he doesn't wait around. He makes a move, even if that move cuts across the football operation. Let's not forget, Haslam has done this before. He's cycled through 6 head coaches and even more quarterbacks since 2012. He's been accused of meddling in draft picks. He's forced front offices to make short-term decisions to stop fan backlash. And each time, the result has been the same, chaos disguised as action. This quarterback switch checks every single box of a panic-driven organizational move. Zoden, against conventional coaching wisdom, aligned perfectly with a need to spark ticket sales, and placed entirely on the shoulders of a rookie. When you follow the trail, it leads away from the locker room and straight into the business office. And let's be honest, if Shadur Sanders hadn't been named Sanders, would this move have happened? Would the Browns really stick with a first-time starter fresh off one average game over a healthy, cleared QB with more experience in the system right after a win? Probably not. But Sanders isn't just a name, it's a brand. And when your team is sinking and your fans are disappearing, it's the kind of thing an owner notices immediately. Not just because of what the young quarterback might do, but because of what he represents. Merchandise spikes, more clicks, more press. And, most importantly, more hope even if it isn't based on wins. Because make no mistake, this decision wasn't about earning the spot, it was about buying time. Changing the conversation just long enough to get people talking, get fans turning on the TV again, and give the illusion of forward motion. It has all the signs of a Hail Mary from the top floor, a move built on branding, not football. And the most frustrating part? Everyone in the building knows it. The players, the staff, the coach, even the fans. They've seen this movie before. The name changes, the jersey number changes, but the script, it's always the same. And somehow, ownership is always in the final scene. Set aside the ownership drama for a second. Strip away the headlines, the family legacy, the buzz. Let's talk football, the part that's supposed to actually matter. Because even from a purely performance-based perspective, this quarterback switch makes almost no sense. Let's look at how this normally works in the NFL. When a starting quarterback gets injured, particularly due to something like a concussion, he enters protocol. Once that protocol is cleared and he's declared medically fit to play, the expectation is simple. He gets his job back. Unless the backup turned into the second coming of Patrick Mahomes, there's generally no reason to disrupt stability, especially if you just won a game. And let's be clear, Dylan Gabriel wasn't benched for throwing 3-pick games or blowing crucial moments. He didn't collapse in the red zone 3 weeks in a row. He got hurt. That's it. There wasn't a quarterback controversy. There wasn't pressure mounting from inside the locker room to make a change. There was no breakdown in leadership, no viral sideline tantrums, nothing that would justify a domino collapse at QB1. So how did one semi-decent start from a rookie no less flip the entire quarterback hierarchy upside down? Because if you watch Shadur Sanders' debut objectively, you saw flashes, not fire. Moments of promise, Yes, a few high-difficulty throws that showcased his arm talent, poise in bits, clear athletic potential. But he wasn't running a clean surgical offense. The Browns didn't suddenly become explosive because of him. He did just enough to manage the win. And that's expected. He's a rookie. He's supposed to make mistakes. He's supposed to struggle with timing, pre-snap reads, blitzes, adjustments. That's how development works in the NFL. One game isn't a sample size, it's the start of a question, which is exactly why this move raises so many red flags. If the decision were based purely on merit, on performance, on football logic, then Sanders would have been named the temporary starter. Or, at minimum, the conversation would have focused on competition going forward. A week-to-week evaluation. A chance to earn the job through consistency. But instead, it was handed to him like the decision had been made before kickoff. And what's even more wild, there's no indication that Dylan Gabriel did anything wrong. No mention of setbacks in his recovery. No indication that practices exposed flaws. No talk of reduced leadership, lack of energy, broken locker room dynamics. None of the usual coach speak that gets tossed out to justify a controversial benching. Gabriel met every condition expected of him. He got hurt, he healed, and by all internal accounts, was ready to return. So why wasn't he allowed to? That's the question that rips at the football core of this team. Because when football decisions aren't based on football logic, there's a cost. Not just to the players directly involved, but to the whole roster. The minute guys start thinking starting roles can be lost to narrative instead of performance, it changes how they approach everything from prep to trust in the coaching staff. The quarterback isn't just another player, he's the pulse of the offense. He's the communicator, the play caller, the emotional thermostat. And when your quarterback is selected based on media value or brand appeal, it fractures the entire foundation of what makes teams work. Think about what this does in the locker room. Every player watching this unfold is suddenly wondering, am I next? If performance no longer guarantees opportunity, how secure is anyone's spot? How much of what they're doing actually matters, and how much comes down to outside noise? Even worse, it could affect how teammates view Shadur Sanders. Not because of anything he's done, but because of how he got the job. Whether he deserves it or not, he's now associated with outside interference. He's the ownership pick. The golden boy. That creates tension. Unspoken, sure, but very real. And then there's the game planning. Let's not forget, Sanders is still developing. He's only faced one NFL defense, and now every coordinator in the league has tape on him. Defensive schemes are about to get more complex. Blitzes are going to come more frequently. DCs are going to bait him, confuse him, force him to process faster than he's ready for. That's what happens to young QBs. It's part of the process. And Sanders is being thrown into that fire hole. No easing in. No games to settle in. No margin for bad starts. He's now expected to carry the offense. And if he struggles as most rookies do, he won't just be questioned on his play. He'll be questioned on whether he earned the job in the first place. That's brutal pressure. And let's not forget the domino effect. If Sanders falters, if Gabriel demands a trade, if faith in Stefanski collapses under pressure from decisions he didn't authorize, then the Browns just created a self-inflicted quarterback crisis in the middle of the season. Not because the team was unraveling on the field, but because someone tried to fix a business problem with a football decision. When a quarterback change happens, it's never just about the X's and O's. It's about the locker room, the heartbeat of any team. And in Cleveland right now, that heartbeat is skipping. Players notice everything. They see the headlines, they hear the whispers, and they watch how decisions are made. And when a move like this happens, benching a healthy, cleared starter in favor of a rookie with one game under his belt, it sends shockwaves through the entire roster. Take Jerry Jeudy, for example. The receiver's frustration was clear in his brief media availability earlier in the week. He's a competitor, someone who thrives on rhythm and trust with his quarterback. When the QB carousel spins like this, it disrupts timing, chemistry, and confidence. Judy's terse answers weren't just about a fumble or a bad play, they hinted at something deeper, a locker room unsettled by chaos. Veteran players, especially those who've been through multiple Browns regimes, are likely feeling a sense of déjà vu. They've seen this pattern before. Ownership meddling, sudden changes, decisions made for reasons beyond football. It breeds cynicism. It makes players question whether the organization is truly committed to winning or just chasing headlines. And that doubt is dangerous. Football is a game of trust. Trust in your coaches, trust in your teammates, and trust in the system. When players start doubting the decision makers, it fractures that trust. It creates an environment where motivation dips and focus wavers. For Dylan Gabriel, this is more than just a professional setback. It's a personal blow. He's worked his entire life to reach this level, earned his spot, and now finds himself sidelined not because of performance, but because of forces beyond his control. The psychological toll of that can't be overstated. He's expected to stay professional, support his teammate, and be ready if called upon, but inside, he's grappling with a profound sense of injustice. Meanwhile, Shadur Sanders is walking a tightrope. Yes, he's been handed the starting job, but with it comes immense pressure. Not just to win games, but to justify a decision that many see as driven by marketing rather than merit. That's a heavy burden for any young player, especially one still learning the ropes of the NFL. The coaching staff is caught in the middle. Kevin Stefanski is supposed to be the leader, the final authority on personnel decisions. But when ownership steps in and dictates who plays quarterback, it undermines his credibility. How can he maintain authority when the most important position on the field is chosen over his head? The rest of the roster is watching all of this unfold. They're not naive. They understand when decisions are made for football reasons versus business reasons. And when they see a quarterback change that doesn't make sense competitively, it breeds skepticism. This isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a crisis of confidence within the entire organization. To truly understand what's happening in Cleveland, you have to look beyond this season, beyond this quarterback controversy, and see the bigger picture. Because this isn't new, it's a pattern. A cycle that the Browns have been trapped in for years. Jimmy Haslam's ownership tenure has been marked by instability and interference. Coaches come and go, quarterbacks are shuffled like playing cards. Promises of building a winning culture have repeatedly fallen flat. And the root cause? A leadership style that blurs the lines between business and football operations. This latest quarterback decision fits perfectly into that narrative. It's not an isolated incident. It's the latest chapter in a long story of ownership meddling that has repeatedly undermined the team's ability to build sustainable success. Look back at the Browns' history over the past decade. There have been multiple coaching changes, often abrupt and poorly explained. Front offices have been overhauled. Draft strategies have shifted dramatically from year to year. And through it all, the team has struggled to find consistency, especially at quarterback. Ownership's tendency to prioritize short-term fixes over long-term development has created a revolving door of players and coaches. Instead of trusting the process, the Browns have chased quick headlines and instant gratification, often at the expense of on-field performance. The quarterback situation is a perfect example. Rather than allowing young players to develop in a stable environment, the Browns have repeatedly rushed decisions, creating chaos and uncertainty. This latest move to start Shadur Sanders over a healthy Dylan Gabriel is just the newest iteration of that approach. And the consequences are clear. The team's performance suffers, the locker room fractures, fan trust erodes, ticket sales drop, and the cycle repeats. Other NFL franchises have learned from similar mistakes. They empower their football staff to make decisions, resist the urge to meddle, and focus on building sustainable success. The Browns, unfortunately, have yet to break free from this destructive pattern. Until they do, the drama will continue, the quarterback controversies will keep coming, and the Browns will remain stuck in mediocrity. Now, let's zoom in on the man at the center of this storm. Shadur Sanders, the rookie quarterback who's suddenly been thrust into the spotlight, carrying the weight of a franchise's hopes and a whole lot more. For Sanders, this isn't just about stepping onto the field and playing football. It's about navigating a minefield of expectations, pressures, and questions that go far beyond his actual performance. First, there's the obvious: the name. Being the son of NFL legend Deion Sanders means Shedeur arrives with instant recognition. Wherever he goes, cameras follow. Headlines write themselves. Social media buzzes nonstop. That kind of spotlight can be a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it opens doors. It brings attention, endorsements, and a platform that few rookies ever get. On the other hand, it creates a pressure cooker environment where every throw, every decision, every mistake is magnified. But here's the catch. Shadur Sanders didn't just earn this starting job by outplaying his competition on the field. At least, not yet. The decision to name him starter came with a heavy dose of speculation that it was driven as much by marketing and ticket sales as by football merit. That's a tough position for any player, especially a rookie still learning the ropes of the NFL. Instead of being judged solely on his development and performance, Sanders is now carrying the additional burden of justifying an organizational decision that many see as a business move. That means every game he plays will be scrutinized through a different lens. Fans and analysts won't just ask, is he playing well? They'll ask, is he worth the hype? Did the Browns make the right call? Is this just a publicity stunt? That's a lot to carry on young shoulders. And the pressure doesn't stop there. Sanders is expected not only to win games, but to sell tickets, to generate buzz, to reignite a fan base that's been checked out for years. That's a unique and unfair burden for any player, let alone a rookie quarterback still adjusting to the speed and complexity of the NFL. Then there's the football side of things. Sanders showed flashes of promise in his first start, impressive arm talent, some big plays, and a calmness under pressure that's rare for a rookie. But he also showed the typical rookie struggles: timing issues, occasional misreads, and the inevitable growing pains that come with stepping up to the highest level of the sport. The Browns are asking him to develop on the fly, to learn while under the microscope, and to lead a team that's desperate for stability. That's a tall order. And what about the support system around him? The coaching staff, the veteran players, the offensive line, all crucial pieces in a young quarterback's success. But with the organizational chaos and the clear signs of tension in the locker room, it's unclear how solid that foundation really is. If the team can't provide a stable environment, Sanders' development could be at risk. Young quarterbacks need patience, trust, and a clear path to grow. Instead, he's been thrown into a situation where the stakes are sky high, and the margin for error is razor thin. The psychological toll can't be ignored either. Knowing that your opportunity came not just from your talent, but from factors outside your control, like ownership's desire to boost ticket sales, can create a sense of isolation. It can make it harder to build confidence and focus purely on football. And then there's the inevitable comparison to Dylan Gabriel. Gabriel was the presumed starter before injury sidelined him. He's healthy now, but sidelined. That dynamic creates an undercurrent of tension. Sanders isn't just competing against opposing defenses. He's competing against the shadow of a teammate who is pushed aside unfairly. That can create friction in the locker room and add another layer of pressure on Sanders to prove he belongs. So what does all this mean for Shadur Sanders' future? If he succeeds, if he can rise above the noise, develop quickly, and lead the Browns to wins, he'll be hailed as a savior. The organization will claim vindication, and ownership will take credit for a bold, visionary move. But if he struggles, as many rookies do, the fallout could be brutal. The Browns will have burned a bridge with Gabriel, alienated the coaching staff, and exposed themselves to criticism for letting business concerns override football judgment. Sanders could become a cautionary tale, a talented player caught in the crossfire of a dysfunctional franchise. The reality is, Sanders is in a no-win situation. The expectations are enormous, the scrutiny relentless, and the support uncertain. But there's one thing that's clear. The Browns have placed their future on his shoulders, whether he's ready or not. And that makes every snap he takes more than just a play. It's a test of character, resilience, and the ability to thrive amid chaos. For fans watching, it's a story that's just beginning. For Sanders, it's a journey that will define his career and maybe the Browns' future. While all eyes are on Shadur Sanders, the ripple effects of this quarterback decision are hitting two other key figures hard: Dylan Gabriel and Kevin Stefanski. Their futures and the Browns' stability are now hanging in the balance. Let's start with Dylan Gabriel. From a purely football perspective, this is a crushing setback. Gabriel didn't lose his job because of poor play or lack of effort. He lost it because of injury and, more importantly, because of forces beyond his control. He cleared concussion protocol, was ready to return, and yet found himself sidelined indefinitely. That's a bitter pill for any professional athlete to swallow. Gabriel has dedicated years to reaching the NFL, fought through the grind of practice squads and backups, and earned the trust of coaches and teammates. To be pushed aside, not by competition, but by organizational maneuvering, raises serious questions about loyalty and fairness. The psychological impact can't be overstated. Gabriel is expected to stay professional, support his teammates, and be ready if called upon. But internally, he's likely wrestling with frustration, confusion, and a sense of injustice. That kind of emotional turmoil can affect performance, morale, and even long-term career prospects. And what about his future with the Browns? It's uncertain. Will he accept a backup role indefinitely? Will he seek a trade or release? Or will this situation become a breaking point in his relationship with the franchise? These are questions that remain unanswered but are critical to watch as the season unfolds. Now, turn to Kevin Stefanski. As head coach, Stefanski is supposed to be the ultimate authority on personnel decisions and game day operations. But this quarterback controversy has exposed a glaring reality: he doesn't have full control. When ownership steps in and dictates who starts at quarterback, it undermines the entire coaching structure. Stefanski's credibility with players and staff takes a hit. How can he lead effectively when the most important position on the field is chosen over his head? This situation puts Stefanski in an impossible spot. If Sanders succeeds, Stefanski might get credit for developing the young quarterback even if the decision wasn't his. But if things go south, he'll be the one facing the media, explaining losses and absorbing blame. The pressure is immense. Stefanski must navigate a fractured locker room, manage player morale, and try to win games, all while operating under constraints that limit his authority. For the Browns organization, this dynamic is dangerous. A head coach without full control over his roster is a recipe for dysfunction. It creates confusion, breeds mistrust, and can accelerate the cycle of instability that has plagued the franchise for years. Veteran players, especially those who have endured multiple regime changes, are watching closely. They know when decisions are made for football reasons and when they're driven by business or politics. This quarterback saga sends a clear message: football isn't always the priority. That message resonates beyond the locker room. It affects free agent interest, coaching hires, and the overall culture of the team. Prospective players and staff want stability and respect for the game. When those are missing, Cleveland's reputation suffers. In the end, the fallout from this quarterback decision extends far beyond the field. It impacts careers, relationships, and the very identity of the Browns. For Gabriel, it's a professional crossroads. For Stefanski, it's a test of leadership under pressure. And for the franchise, it's a moment that could define the next chapter, either as a turning point towards stability or another step deeper into chaos. The Cleveland Browns have just made one of the most controversial and high-stakes decisions of their season, benching a healthy Dylan Gabriel in favor of rookie Shadur Sanders. But this isn't just a quarterback change. It's a window into a franchise wrestling with its identity, caught between football logic and business pressures. Ownership's fingerprints are all over this move, and whether it pays off or backfires, the consequences will ripple through the locker room, the coaching staff, and the fan base for years to come. Sanders now carries a burden far heavier than most rookies expected, not only to win games, but to justify a decision driven as much by marketing as by merit. Gabriel faces a painful professional setback, forced to watch from the sidelines despite being ready to play. Stefanski's authority has been undermined, leaving him to navigate a fractured team with limited control over its most critical position. The Browns' history of dysfunction looms large, and this latest episode feels like a familiar chapter in a story that desperately needs a new ending. Will this gamble spark a turnaround, or will it deepen the cycle of chaos that has haunted Cleveland for years? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear: the drama in Cleveland is far from over. If you found this deep dive revealing, hit that like button and share your thoughts below. Do you think ownership made the right call? Is Shadur Sanders ready to lead? What's next for Dylan Gabriel and Kevin Stefanski? We want to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss our coverage of the wildest stories in the NFL. The Browns always deliver drama, and we'll be here to break it all down. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.